So you've seen this already. This was the last place. This is what somebody said the last place we were at was. Correct? Okay. McDonald's underground in the old cellars in the old town. Notice how over on the right you can still see the sign for McDonald's there. Not a big obtrusive thing. They blend it in so that it fits with the landscape. Hey, look. Like I said before, in Poland, traditions are very important, keeping the music alive. And here's a guy on the streets playing music, hoping that you'll throw some money in his hat that's on the ground there. And what is he playing? It's a bagpipe. It doesn't look exactly like the other bagpipe that you saw from the Sorbs, but what is it made out of? It's a goat again. Yep, it's a goat. And you notice they sort of made the face here, the head of the goat here. You see the horns there in the part where you play with your fingers. Every town, every bigger town, old town in Europe had what was called the town square, where merchants and farmers would bring their stuff to sell. They'd set up little booths around this open area in the middle of town to sell their stuff. What is that like today? We have something like that today. Yes, Laura. Like a farmer's market. Anybody here ever been to a farmer's market? Okay, that's what it was like. And so in the old towns in Europe, you'll find that there'll be a big area that's open without a lot of buildings in it. This is the town square of the old town of Kraków. And this building here is called the Sukienica. It was where you could go in and buy cloth so that you can make clothing. So today, it's basically a place to buy souvenirs. They have tons of little souvenir shops for you to buy things, such as a copy of, anybody remember what this was called right here? It's an icon, but anybody remember the name of this particular one that I'm showing you? There's actually one version here and one version there. The Black Madonna, yeah. You see in this picture some plates that I actually have over on the side. At this place, I bought a sword that's hanging up on my wall at home. I cannot bring my sword in, no. Nope. I would love to buy a suit of armor that they have there, but it is way too pricey for me. If I win the lottery, I'll buy it, and I'll show you the suit of armor that I want to buy at the end of today. Looking down, you see lots and lots and lots of different stalls for buying souvenirs. Here's the end of the Sukienica. You see, hey, look, you can take a little golf cart around the city and have people tell you about it in English and German and Norwegian and Russian. You could also take a little tour around the city in a horse-drawn carriage. But we're going to look at this church in the background there. You see that church there? That is called the Kościół Mariacki, or Mary's Church. And if I isolate it at night, that's what it looks like. What does this look like up here on the top of the tower on the left? The left tower. What is that? What do you think that's symbolizing? Yes, Victor. It's a crown, yes. Because they made Mary officially the Queen of Poland back in the 1600s. So, if we go inside this church, it doesn't look that fancy on the outside. But if you go inside, you'll notice very colorful in terms of paintings, lots of gold. And the ceiling is done with blue and gold stars to simulate the night. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, a legend. Back in the 1200s, when the Mongols were attacking, the Mongols were a group of people from Mongolia that swept across Asia and into Europe. They were very feared and they were very deadly. They came on horseback. They chopped off people's heads, piled them up in piles to make sure that nobody messed with them. And the story goes that when the Mongols reached Krakow, a trumpeter went up to the tower and started to play a song calling the people in the area into the city so that they could lock everybody inside the city walls to protect them and save them from the Mongols. Supposedly, though, while that trumpeter was calling out to the people, he got hit in the throat with an arrow. And his song stopped in mid-tune. Every hour on the hour, they replay that. There is a trumpeter that goes up to that tower every hour and plays that same song, north, south, east, west, and stops in the middle of the song, symbolizing when he got hit in the throat with the arrow. See if you can hear when he gets hit. That's where he gets hit in the throat with the arrow. Now today they do not actually throw an arrow or launch an arrow through his throat, but it symbolizes a story that goes all the way back to the 1200s that they reenact over and over and over again as part of the tradition. Again, it goes back to me saying tradition is very, very important to Polish people. Here is the royal castle in Krakow. This is a nice looking gate area with all the greenery. It just looks a little funky knowing that you have a green and red light over here on the side. That's because this road is so narrow going up that if you have a car, if it's red, you can't go up there because that means that there's going to be a car coming from the other direction. And that would be for workers at the castle. But here's the castle itself, located on a hill. This is called Wawel, W-A-W-E-L, Wawel Castle on Wawel Hill. Okay, let's go outside of Krakow just a little bit. We're going to go to a place called Wieliczka. And if you did your assignment last week, you have already seen Wieliczka because Wieliczka is the salt mine. The world's oldest operating salt mine. It's where the salt in the back of the room came from. And it is a museum as well today that you can go into. Now, as you go into Wieliczka, you notice that lots of people have written graffiti up here. For example, this person came from Kazakhstan in 1999, it says up here. You go in, and you have to take the steps down to the bottom. You don't get an elevator. You get to take the elevator up. You have to walk down the steps. And I took this picture pointing down. Here are the steps winding down. And so you see how far you have to go down into the mine. You don't want to fall, but you see the handrail here. So winding all the way down there. Once you get down there, that's what you see. That is all salt. The floor, the ceiling up here you don't see because of the wood, but the sides of the walls and the floor, that is all salt. That is the same salt that is in the back. It looks dark because the light can't penetrate it all the way. But if you were to chip it off, it would be white. That is where I said if you walk through, you can lick your fingers, touch the walls, lick your fingers, and prove that it is salt. I've done it many a times, and I never got sick. But over the hundreds of years that this has been operating, the miners have carved out of the salt statues and rooms, like this one here. This is a little chapel to pray at. The person standing there is not made out of salt. His name is Kamil. He's the one that you saw on Friday going up in the church in Gdańsk. And so they have entire rooms made from salt. And that picture is in your book. Victor. Eventually, yeah. Everything that you see here is made out of salt. You see that floor that looks like it's tile? All they did was carve into the salt floor little grooves to make it look like it's tile. The chandeliers are all rock crystal salt. Everything here you see is salt. It's a huge, huge room. And again, it was in your textbook at the beginning of section 1 of chapter 13. So if you go down, you take a look, you see all the different statues in that. Now, we're going to go to a different location. We're going to go to Zakopane. Yes? You can't just chip stuff off. No. You can buy it in different shops that are there. I bought that hunk of salt that's over there. Yep. We're going to go to Zakopane, which is down here, so we're going to be right in the heart of the what's. Raise your hand if you can tell me. Southern Poland. We're going to be right in the hearts of, Espen? The Carpathian Mountains, yes. And there's an area in Zakopane called Morskie Oko that you cannot drive to. It's about 5 kilometers, so about 2.5 miles that you have to walk. Or you can pay to ride on a cart pulled by horses. And so this is going to show you the walking path up through the trees in the high mountains. You can take a little shortcut if you want. It's not quite as paved, but it does go up at a steeper angle, so you get there a little quicker. But it is more of a workout on your legs. And the views while you're walking up there, this is what you see up in the Carpathians. And if you notice on the right-hand side, and this was taken in the end of July, what do you got? Snow, yeah. On the right-hand side of the picture, you see snow up there. Snow up in the higher elevations. The higher you go, the colder it gets. And eventually you make it up to this area, which you've seen already. This is Morskie Oko, this river, or this lake here. And from the other side, that's what it looks like. Here's where that previous picture was. You see the little building there, that's right there. So from walking to the other side, this is what you see. Just sound it out. I'm not worried about spelling here. Morskie Oko, it literally means eye of the sea. So it's like the sea is all the way up here in the mountains. And there are several lakes with little waterfalls that flow from one to the other to the other. You see this little ridge here, you see the snow up there, but you see this little ridge where it's green, and then you see farther back it's sort of a grayer color. That's the edge of another lake. And you see the waterfall coming down here. So this lake up here is spilling down into Morskie Oko, which eventually goes into a river. And so here's my friend's family standing on the rock there. And where I'm standing in the snow. If I turn around, there's the snow at the end of July. It didn't feel cold, but it was cold enough to have snow up there. We walked up, but we decided we had enough walking, so we decided we'd take the cart on the way down. Anybody figure out what these are? Anybody know what these are used for? Yes. Nope, not for barricades. Good guess. Yes. As a ladder? Nope, good guess. Nope, sorry. Not for killing people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're on a mountainside, and let's say you're a farmer, have you ever seen haystacks? Now, if you try to make a haystack on the side of a mountain, what's probably going to happen? It's going to fall down unless you have something to hold them up. That's what these are for making haystacks, so that they don't fall down, especially on the sides of mountains. Now, this area isn't very, this area where this hay isn't very slanted, but that's the regional tool that they use for making their haystacks. And the reason why you make haystacks is to let the hay dry out. Yeah. That is an advertisement for a dairy. Those are all dairy things. Behind that is a ski jump. And I don't think I have a picture of the ski jump. Nope. Okay. We're going to go to Rzeszów. This is near where I normally live when I'm in Poland. The city of Rzeszów. I'm just north of Rzeszów. And this is what the landscape looks like. Remember I told you my friend had a farm and that the farms are really narrow, they're really skinny but long? I'm going to show you a picture here of the fields. I'm standing in the middle of my friend's field by some alfalfa, and his field is this skinny piece here that goes down, goes down, goes down to the tree, shifts over, and then continues on for 1.5 miles. Very, very skinny, about 20 paces wide. They each of these is a separate owner. Their field. One right by the other. And you notice the next town is here, and they have their fields that come up and butt against this village's fields. There's my friend's house and garage, and storage shed. Notice how skinny everything is. Again, 20 steps wide. Excuse me. When I was there, they always want me to make something American. And so, what did I make for them? Tacos, yes. And so this was the first time they're trying to figure out how to eat tacos. It was an experience for them, how to hold it, how to fold it. Getting the meat was quite interesting because they normally don't eat a lot of beef in Poland. It's normally a lot of chicken and pork. And so I asked my friend for a hamburger. So he goes to his wife's cousin who owns a butcher, basically a meat factory. And it's her husband that owns it. And wanted to get some burger. Well, they got burger from a cow that had just been slaughtered that day. He was right. It had not set up. It had not gelled. It was just really runny, sticky, bloody burger. I've told my friend several times since then, every time he wants me to make something that I don't need fresh, like that fresh, every time I get that fresh. And I yell at him because it doesn't, it's like working with paste. That's what it's like. But anyway, learning how to eat tacos. This is my friend's sister-in-law. She's trying to figure out how to fold it. The shells I brought from home. The cheese I had to grate myself. And so they're trying. It's not uncommon to see horse-drawn carts on the roads. Now, look at the road itself. Up in the upper left-hand corner. Is it very wide? No. Can you imagine getting behind a cart being pulled by a horse and having no room to pass? Very typical in Eastern Europe. The road systems are not that wide, not that good. You've all seen these cars before now. They're finally made it to the United States, but they've been in Europe for about 10 years. These are the smart cars. Very, very teeny tiny cars. And my friend's son there, Camille, I had him stand next to it so you could see just how small it is. And with this picture, he was probably about 9. He's about your age now. He's not really tall. Normally, during the communist period, these were the cars that they got. They were called maluchs, or the little ones. The engines were in the back. The trunk was in the front, and we went traveling one time up in the mountains in one of these, and my friend couldn't figure out why the brakes weren't working. Oh, yeah, problem. Because he's like, there's something strange. I'm like, what's wrong? He said, the brakes aren't working. I'm like, okay. And then we realized what it was. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I had my legs extended. My legs were getting into the cables of the brakes, so that when he pressed the brake pedal, the brakes wouldn't apply because they were tangled up in my feet. Not a lot of room in these things. Anybody know what that might be? That's in the trunk of a car. Yeah. Ah. Yes and no. What do you think's inside? Nope. Doug? Oil and gas mix? Nope. Nope, that's not the engine. Nope. That, ladies and gentlemen, is like a propane tank for cars to run on natural gas. In Europe, they have been modifying their regular cars to run on natural gas for over 10 years. Natural gas is a lot cheaper than gasoline. It doesn't get as good a mileage, but this is my friend's car, my other friend's car, Grishek's, and that is where they put the natural gas or the propane to run their cars on. Normally what they do is they have an extra little tank in case they run out of propane or natural gas. They can flip a switch and use regular gas until they get to a gas station. But a lot of cars run on natural gas, and all the gas stations have natural gas pumps where you hook it up and pump the natural gas into the tank for use. It's also a lot cleaner. Natural gas burns a lot cleaner than regular gasoline. Okay. And there's the taco picture. These are just some scenes from the town of Rzeszów, the big city in the region. The market square here. Notice they have McDonald's as well as New Balance. Market square down on the left again. This is a palace called Weinsuit. And this is another dance group. Every 3 years, at least 40 different dance groups from around the world gather in Rzeszów to perform traditional Polish folk dancing. I go there almost every 3 years. It's only open to groups outside of Poland. And so there are groups from Brazil, Argentina, Australia, France, Switzerland, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, all over the place. And this was a group, I think, from Canada in their military outfits. And that's what this is. This was the 13th World Festival of Polish Folk Groups, Rzeszów 2005. And there's my group dancing and marching in the parade. And yes, that's me. And there's Leslie. Leslie's in the back in the lower left. She passed away about 3 years ago. Went to sleep and never woke up. And there's me in the newspaper in Poland, giving a high five to a kid along the parade route. And somebody took a picture of it and put it in the newspaper. I have a real funky expression on my face. I'm like, but oh well. The bottom just says, during the parade, there were some very nice meetings. So we've looked at Poland. Now we're going to look at the areas that Poland was back in the 1600s, because I was able to go and travel through Ukraine and Belarus. And so we're going to go down here to a place called Kamieniec-Podolski. Kamieniec-Podolski is one of the neatest castles I have ever come across because of its position. The town of Kamieniec-Podolski was built on what's called an oxbow. where a river, notice how this river comes and makes a huge loop and then continues on. The only way into that town was through this little piece of land here. And so in order to protect that town, they built a huge castle right there. They built this castle right there so that anybody wanting to get into the town had to go through and defeat the castle. Now, the cliffs are huge. I'll show you here. There's the castle. I'm taking it from the town. So in order to get into the town, you had to defeat that castle. Notice how high everything is above the ground here. High, very high cliffs. Here's the river. The river is cut deep. And so this is a very, very old castle. And it held out for a very long time. The only time it was defeated was after, what was it? It was like there were 70 people in here defending against 70,000. That was the only time it fell. Very old, very just, it's not a palace. It's meant for fortification. It's meant for protecting. And so that's what is going on here. See the insides. Ah, the suit of armor that I would love to own. And you saw some of these in the music video today. This is the suit of armor for what are called the hussars. The hussary. The hussars were a type of Polish knight that had these wings on them. And when you rode across the battlefield with those wings, they made noise. So it made it sound like there were more of them than actually were. And it would scare the people to run away. It also made it difficult to lasso the knights and pull them off their horses, because that was one of the tactics. Throw rope on a knight, pull him off his horse, and then attack him that way. But with these wings, it was very difficult for them to get around the entire armor. This suit of armor today, if I wanted it for in my house, would be about $3,000 to $4,000 handmade. I'd like it, but I don't think it'll ever happen. We're going to go to a town called Lvov, or Lvov. This is a cemetery here for Polish soldiers when they were at war with the Soviet Union at one point. Here's a typical headstone from Eastern Europe in a cemetery. What do you notice that is slightly different than what you think of headstones in the United States? Yeah, it's very, very common for headstones to have people's pictures on them. Pictures of the person that is lying there, not living there, obviously. This is Lvov, that's the opera house. Some of the churches, very dark, lots of gold on the inside. What do you notice about the streets here? Don't see it much there, but you see it here. What are these things right here? Anybody know? These wires in the left picture, sort of in the middle of the screen. Yes. Okay, they are power. They are electrified. Can anybody tell me what they're for? Doug? Maybe for trains? No, not phone lines. They're actually for buses. Electric buses that get their power from the lines up above. So they're not on tracks, but the buses have to be underneath these to get their power. I think I have some pictures of those later. Just some more pictures of Lvov here. looking up into the dome of one of the old churches. And again, do you see a lot of skyscrapers? Why not? Why not? Buildings can't be taller than the tallest church. That's correct. Oh, there's something missing here. There's something missing. And I don't know why it is missing, because I don't have the pictures of the washing machine and everything. Okay, continuing on, we're going to actually pop back to Warsaw for just a little bit. We already took a look at this picture of Belvedere. And the same. Here's an apartment building. This is one of the new apartment buildings that's been built in Poland. And notice, you have private driveway, lots of satellite dishes, gated access. If you go in one of these apartments, looks really nice. In Poland, you buy your apartments, you do not rent them. So it's almost like what we call in the United States a condominium. Here's the view of my friend's apartment as we go into the apartment there. Here's their kitchen. Again, small area. If you notice where their kitchen table is, that table is pushed right up against the wall. So if you have guests, they have to pull it out. So not a lot of room, but it's a very open floor pan, big cook surface, very open apartment with quite a bit of room for people to live in. Here's their living room. And yes, they do have an LCD TV there. The furniture over on the left, the couch there, actually folds out into a bed. That's where I stayed when I was living there with them. Here's their bathroom. Now, what do you notice that's different about their bathroom compared to our bathrooms here in the U.S.? Yeah, you normally don't find a washer in the bathroom, but in Poland they do. And in most places in Europe, the washer for your clothes is found in the bathroom. Why? Why do you think that? Well, the answer is because you have all the plumbing there for all the water. So you don't have to have any special plumbing anyplace else. The apartment is small in that it doesn't have a lot of extra rooms. And so in many places, the washer will be in the bathroom because that's where you have all the hookups, all the plumbing. The water access, the access for dumping the used water from the washer, the drain in that, everything's there in the bathroom. And there's a hamper there for them to keep their dirty clothes before they wash them. Notice the toilet. Seems to be missing the back end, doesn't it? But if you notice, the button for using the toilet is up in the wall. You notice that it's divided into two buttons up there? The one button, the lower button, the one that's smaller, that uses less water. So if when you did your business, it was all liquid, you could just use the little button. If you had something more substantial, you'd use the big button. So it regulates how much water, a little water or a lot of water. Here's what they often do since they don't have dryers. Most of the time, they put their clothes out to dry out on the clotheslines. And here's my friend's house with the clothes hanging out on the clothesline. Here's a funky little restaurant that was actually up in Warsaw. It's called Jeff's. Now, Jeff's is an American restaurant, or it's what they think of as an American restaurant. If you go inside, It's filled with American style things such as, if you notice on the ceiling, you got golf hanging from the ceiling. Upside down, you got license plates. And if you notice up above my friend Marek and Olga's picture there, if I zoom in, there's a picture of a Minnesota license plate in a Polish restaurant. In Krakow now, going back a little bit here, here is a picture of one of the actual factories that Oskar Schindler, the guy from Schindler's List, owned and operated. He is credited with saving many Jews from the Holocaust, from Hitler's concentration camps. And this is a building that is still standing in Krakow. Here is one of Hitler's concentration camps. This is Auschwitz, or in Polish, Oświęcim. A sign says Arbeit macht frei, which means that work will set you free. They were told if they worked hard enough, they would earn their freedom. That never did happen. Their living conditions were rotten. Here you have 1, 2, 3 levels of bedding. Normally, they might have had one blanket or so, maybe a little straw. Blankets were often made out of human hair, by the way. And when they died, they were put in these furnaces for cremation. Today, you can go to Auschwitz, and it is a museum. And that is all we need to do for today. That is the end for a trip to Poland.